John Chen willing to walk away from the table from this deal, potentially. Now, for the most important part, in my opinion, was when John Chen stated to the analysts that the stock is undervalued. And is not. Okay, so we got some awesome stuff for the patent sale for BlackBerry stock. It's going to be 80% chance, according to John Chen, released in third quarter of fiscal year 2022, which is what we're in right now. That goes from September 1st all the way till November 30th. Earnings will be announced in end of December. And based off his tone, there's something important to mention, but there's a 20% chance, according to John Chen, that in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2022, which starts from 2021 December 1st and ends in February 28th, and is announced in terms of earnings results at the end of March. But based off his tone and what he's been stating, he's essentially tired of waiting, and it sounds like he's going to be announcing it once the deal is completed and gone and done through, instead of waiting for a conference call for earnings release day and so on and so forth. So don't be surprised if it comes out of left field, out of nowhere, within this quarter or the next quarter, or even just before the earnings themselves. And the reason why I'm stating that is I'm expecting that it's rumored that it's about 20,000 patents. It's rumored potentially to be roughly about $1 billion or more, and I'm pretty confident it's going to be roughly about $1 billion minimum, just because of the sheer complexity, other points that I'm going to be mentioning in terms of other parties coming after these patents. John Chen willing to walk away from the table from this deal, potentially. Just awesome stuff overall. So I'm pretty confident it's roughly about $1 billion deal, and I'm going to be including everything that's available out there for the patent sale. And based off this conference call and past conference calls and shareholders meeting information, you could get all this information from BlackBerry Investors webpage. And if you scroll down, you could listen to the audio replay for the conference call that happened yesterday for the second quarter results. Highly encourage you to listen to it, so that way you're aware of what you own. It's a lot helpful. Plus, the conference call was pretty awesome in my opinion. But if you want to go to the transcript, that way you could search for key terms. Like, for example, I already had it pulled up. I searched for key terms 80, and I get pulled up to the second result where John Chen answers an RBC analyst named Paul the 80 to 20% split. So that's where I got for the 80-20% split for third quarter and fourth quarter. But there's a lot more stuff to go through. So hopefully you enjoy the video. If you do, consider dropping a like. It does help out the channel. So thank you so much for that. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. And quick disclaimer, like always, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a professional. Everything I do share with you is just my opinion. It is not advice. Now, the one question that John Chen was asked, because he made a statement earlier before the Q&A, he says, can you clarify what you mean by other options? He said, good thing you caught that. He stated that because essentially he's tired of waiting, he knows a lot of investors are tired of waiting as well. He's basically going to draw a line in the sand at one point and say that the patent revenue licensing that's at a halt right now can't continue like this, because those patents, they're not collecting patent revenue licensing because the patent is going through a selling process, right? He says that can't continue, and the business needs to either move in one direction or the other. And then there are other parties that are calling them for these patents. Now, before, they basically ignored these other parties because they were going through an exclusive deal with the current party right now to buy these patents. But because it's taking too long, he's willing to walk away, which to me is awesome stuff. The reason why I say this is awesome stuff is, first of all, because he's willing to walk away, and then there's other parties calling for this, this means that BlackBerry is aware of the worth of these patents. So that way they won't be shortchanged. They'll be more confident to approach the negotiation tables to ask for more money. And the reason why this is beneficial, and I know that this was happening during the time that they were negotiating for the price, another analyst asked the question, is it true that the price has already been agreed on and now it's the final stages of being completed? And John Chen stated yes. He can't elaborate anymore, but yes, the price has been agreed on and it's the final stages, so on and so forth. More of the reason why he stated 80% most likely would be to be completed in the third quarter. But the reason why I'm assuming that they would know they're worth a lot is because most likely the other company that approached them is probably Apple. So if you're aware of, BlackBerry sued Facebook because they were infringing on their patents, not paying royalty for them, and BlackBerry won that settlement against Facebook. Now, Facebook could be the party that's buying these patents, because BlackBerry only stated that it's an American company buying these patents, right? So it could be anybody else, but since we haven't seen any real revenue coming in from the settlement from the BlackBerry versus Facebook lawsuit, then we're assuming it's Facebook, right? And if that's the case, they're most likely buying it. So then the competitor, I think, that's potentially coming in and calling, and they said other parties, so it could be more than just Apple. But Apple and Facebook have been pretty much not liking each other nonstop, where I could see Apple buying these patents to basically go back and forth with Facebook in terms of litigation and patent infringement for them when they own these patents, because these patents includes, for example, mobile messaging, stuff like that, networking, and Facebook could be buying these patents for the exact same reason too. So for example, they'll be needing the messaging, but they don't necessarily need the mobile or the networking, and they could be coming after Apple just to basically mess with them in terms of litigation. But I'm not sure, but either way, what I'm saying is, if that's the case, then both parties are willing to pay whatever BlackBerry might be saying. And what I'm preluding to is that it could, more of the reason why I think it's a minimum $1 billion, right? Because these patents are valuable, and keep in mind they're getting about $250 million per year for the majority ballpark of these patents, which is awesome stuff. So definitely worth a lot of money, and these patents have roughly about 7 years left for them. Patents usually last about 20 years. And that leads me to the next point. Well, actually, one more other thing. So the patents are almost done. They made significant progress from last earnings, according to John Chen. So they're moving at a good pace. And then the third and fourth quarter, if the patent deal is not completed, they're expecting about $10 million per quarter for the patents that they are selling the patent revenue licensing from. So the other remaining 20,000 patents, their patent portfolio is about 40,000 total. And the reason why that's significant is because they used to be getting about 50 to 62.5 million per quarter in terms of patent revenue licensing. Now they're averaging between 10 to 15 million, as we saw during this Q2 earnings, is about 15 million. Now, for the most important part, in my opinion, was when John Chen stated to the analysts that the stock is undervalued and is not reflecting the patents themselves or the patent revenue licensing themselves. And I'll elaborate more on that. So right here, John Chen, licensing, as you all know, I'm not getting the valuation of the licensing, at least the recognition in my stock price, which I was like, wow, that's amazing. The fact that he stated that means is like, look guys, the stock is undervalued. I'm aware of it. This is has to be at one point bumped up, right? Partly because he understands though. He says that it's fair points to potentially why, but he has a move to counteract it, which is awesome stuff. So he says partly because it's lumpy. So in terms of, for example, right now it's coming in at 10 to 15 million per quarter in terms of patent revenue licensing, right? But then it was coming in at 50 to 62 before. And a lot of you have expressed that you actually don't know how to measure and value that. And you don't know how to think about the growth part of it, which is very important. What I'm going to explain after soon. But and he says that's all fair. So he says, so I believe that while we have a very fresh set of portfolios with a good average lifespan left in the portfolio, again, like I stated, 7 years for those 20,000 patents, we should monetize in one time, which they're going to get a lump sum plus continuous royalty a little bit, small portions, negligible anyway, but mainly a one-time massive chunk. Then take those proceeds to step on the gas and then to invest in cyber business, which we know there is high growth in them, and we know we've caught up in terms of product gap. This is almost a shot at competitors, by the way, because he took a shot before at, for example, CrowdStrike and other competitors, which is awesome stuff. Honestly, this conference call was amazing in my opinion. I'm going to be going over the conference call and the earnings for Q2 results, again, which was announced yesterday. In the next video, I'm going to try to get that up as soon as possible after this video. Stay on the lookout for that. But then he says, and then also enhance the growth of IoT and invest in Ivy, which is a future revenue source, which could be significant, which I believe it is. Ivy is going to be massive in my opinion. And he says, we have great partners with Amazon. As you know, Ivy and BlackBerry teamed up with Amazon for the Ivy system. So there's a lot of bunch of potential possibilities for this stuff. Now, the reason why this is super important, this is an amazing counter move. If analysts are not being able to value the stock properly based off patents themselves or patent revenue licensing, John Chen is like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to sell these patents then, especially these 20,000 patents. These 20,000 patents are patents that they're not even using, right? They don't need them anymore and all stuff. And even if they need to use them, the part of the agreement from what they've mentioned in the conference calls and the shareholders meeting is they could still use them royalty free anyway, even after the sale. So that's an awesome agreement if they want to use them. But either way, he sells these 20,000 patents, rumored 20,000 patents, for a rumored amount, potentially about 1 billion, if not more, but let's just say 1 billion. If he sells that for $1 billion, he instantly bumps up the market cap of BlackBerry stock $1 billion. And the reason why this is important, and you could see why John Chen is saying that BlackBerry is undervalued. The market, the revenue, yearly revenue for BlackBerry stock Used to be almost about $1 billion, a little bit above sometimes too. But right now I think it's about targeted about 850 million. But let's just give it up to $1 billion again, because the multiple for this sector is about 6 to 7 times. So I'm going to give it a 6 times multiple instead of 7, because I'm rounding it up to $1 billion revenue per year. So 1 billion revenue per year times 6 times multiple, you have 6 billion, which is where it's exactly at right now after a 10% run up today on September 23rd, 2021. So it's $10.60. That's a 10% run up for the day, right? And you got an exact representation of the market cap right now based off revenue, 1 billion times 6 times multiple at 6.004 billion. So before this run up, it was roughly about 5.4 billion. The company was undervalued in terms of just pure revenue, hypothetically, right? And that's not accounting for the patent sales themselves. So if he sells that portfolio, like the portfolio is about 40,000 patents, right? Roughly about there, not exactly, but pretty close to 40,000 patents. If they sell the 20,000 patents for $1 billion, that'll bump it up to 7 billion. And if it's not, it's technically undervalued. And then they still have another 20,000 patents. So let's just give those 20,000 patents, which to me are more important because BlackBerry, for example, is using them. They're for the autonomous vehicle aspect, cybersecurity aspect, so on and so forth. But let's just give it a $500 million valuation for those 20,000 patents. So you have the first 20,000 for $1 billion plus the second 20,000 for $500 million. That's 1.5 billion. The market cap for BlackBerry should be roughly about 7.5 billion if you're not even comparing it to the competitors. Some competitors are at 50 times multiples. I'm only giving it a 6 times multiple. So yes, the thing is, the one thing they'll keep in mind is other competitors technically year-over-year growth is somewhat dramatic, hypothetically, but they were coming from a lower stance, if that makes sense. So if you're going from like $10 a year making somehow, obviously drastic example, and then going to $100 a year, you got 10 times growth, but it's really easy to go from $10 to $100 per, growth, right? But if you're going from 1 billion to 10 billion, it's quite significant, a lot more difficult. And those companies were just going from the come up, right? So just keep that in mind. But either way, awesome stuff. I'm actually really happy he stated that because it's clearly not representing the stock price, right? And he doesn't blame him. He says it's fair, but this is a great workaround for the whole entire thing, because you're just going to sell the patents, and then there's a clear dollar amount value what they're worth. So it's amazing stuff overall. And that's basically it for the video. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you find it helpful. If you did, consider dropping a like. Helps the channel, so thank you so much for that. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. And if you like videos like this or other stock videos or other financial videos, consider subscribing so be notified when I do upload those videos. And that's basically it. Thanks again for watching. Appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.